Yo guys, the main man here, Double H half up. So this is something a little bit different because this is a conversation that I was sort of having online with y'all. And it's about what is the greatest film movie trilogy. And this is something that I want to really get commenting, and I want to pretty much want your guys' views about this in the comments below. So I think we have many different options out there because you've got a lot of the Rings, Back to the Future, not big formers. You have flipping Star Wars, of course. You have the Sergio Leone spaghetti western trilogy and so forth. And there are many things. I think a lot of people point to Lord of the Rings. And I say to guys that I'll give you Fellowship, I'll give you Two Towers. Return of the King was a huge spectacle, but was it really a good film? Fellowship and Two Towers were really good films, but was Return of the King really a good film? I don't think so. Watch it again. It's a huge spectacle, but does it have a strong story in the same vein as Fellowship and Two Towers? And also, Return of the King had about 10 or 15 endings. But I go to one trilogy who I feel tells the perfect story of how a trilogy should go. Because again, when you think of a trilogy, it's the beginning, the introduction on the story, the hero, the villain, the plot, and so forth. Then there's a middle where the story veers off and it really accentuates and it expands, but it goes deep, but also it takes a different, exciting, dramatic direction. And then you have the final film, which wraps everything around and encapsulates what happened in the first two editions. And you can't go back. You can't not go past the original Star Wars trilogy. For me, that is the best trilogy of all time. Because you look at it in A New Hope, perfect introduction to our hero, Luke Skywalker, to our villain, Darth Vader, to other characters, Leia and Han, and what the story is about. And it also leaves things at the end of New Hope where it's like, okay, this is a nice film in and of itself, but let's find out about this Darth Vader. Let's find out more about this Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let's find out about Luke's past that was hinted about. Then in Empire Strikes Back, you just go deeper into the story. We now get introduced to Lando. And the story gets even much more expanded. And then, of course, again, for those who've not seen it, again, I can't assume that everybody's seen it because I'm against giving spoilers. So I will not give a spoiler here. But it takes perhaps probably the most dramatic change in direction that has ever been in any trilogy ever. As in the way in which the story changes and how it raises them stakes for the final film has never been done before. It is the greatest change in a story trajectory that has ever been seen in any trilogy ever. And then in the final film, everything gets wrapped up nicely, and it's an ending that is very satisfying and really blends in with what's seen in the first two films. And then that's what I mean. For me, I look at Back to the Future. Back to the Future 3 is a good film. Back to the Future 3 is it's a decent film. But Back to the Future 1 and 2 are two of the greatest films ever made. It's like, those first two films are in my top 10 films of all time. Like, Back to the Future 2, for me, is one of the greatest films ever made. Back to the Future 1 is a classic, but for me, Part 2 is one of the greatest films ever made. Look at the Matrix trilogy. For me, Matrix is my number one film of all time. Like, Reloaded is... I saw Reloaded 6.5 times in the cinema. Reloaded is the one film that's changed me. Like, literally, I was a different person before Reloaded, and after Reloaded, I changed as a person. For me, Revolutions was... Nah, it wasn't it. But those first two films, Matrix 1 and Matrix Reloaded, were superb. But Revolutions just wasn't it. You see, now, when we look at that spaghetti western thing with the Sergio Leone, something that you guys didn't really know. The first film was... let me say again. Sorry, the first film was actually a remake of Yojimbo by Akira Kurosawa. Fistful of Dollars was a direct remake of Yojimbo. Go and watch Yojimbo. It's the same thing. And Yojimbo came out way before Fistful. For me, I'm not a fan of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Superb soundtrack. Eli Wallach played a superb character in the film. I'm just not a big fan of the film per se. And Few Dollars More is the best out of all the three. Amazing film. And in my opinion, Gian Maria Volonte, who plays Indio in A Few Dollars More, For me, that is one of the greatest acting performances of all time. For those who've not seen it, watch A Few Dollars More, specifically for Indio. Superb direction by Sergio Leone, but the acting of Gian Maria Volonte as Indio is sensational, absolutely sensational. Because even as an actor myself who does a bit of acting, watching that's amazing. Godfather, I think someone also brought this out as well. Godfather 3 is a very good film. Watch Godfather 3 again. Like, forget the first two films and just watch Godfather 3 in and of itself. That is a really good film. I wouldn't have put Sofia Coppola in it. I think that was a bit of nepotism, but Godfather 3 is a really good film. But it came on the back of two of the best films ever made. Like Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 is filmmaking on the highest level and acting on the highest level. So when you watch that, when you watch Godfather 3 in and of itself, it's great. When you watch it off the back of 1 and 2, it feels like watching like a flipping Transformers film directed by Michael Bay. Because that's just how good Godfather 1 and 2 are. So yeah, I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys feel? I'll give you another one. Although I will still say Star Wars. The Captain America trilogy. For me, I would put that as the second best trilogy I've ever seen. Because for me, Captain America: The First Avenger is one of my favorite comic book films I've ever seen. Like, it is like top 3, top 4 of my favorite comic book films. Winter Soldier is a great film. It's a great spy film. Although I hated Scarlett Johansson in it, but I think she detracted from it because she was acting in a whole different film. I think they should have gotten a much more of a proper actress in there. Oh man, I've forgotten that chick from that's that girl from the actress from Amazing Spider-Man. The name leaves me unfortunately. They should have gotten the better actresses out of that they could have gotten. But Winter Soldier, I just thought that how it was made as a spy thriller, it was a lot more serious, and what the kind of conspiracy there was great. And Civil War, man, because people say Civil War was like an Avengers film, but Civil War still carried on the story of Captain America and Bucky and their friendship, and how their friendship came at odds with the Avengers themselves, and how Captain America had to choose between his best friend and his superhero ally. So I just thought the Captain America, those 3 films are excellent. Great 3 films. But I still believe that Star Wars is on top of the mountain. So let me hear from you guys. I want to know, what do you guys, what films do you, what do you think is the best trilogy of all time? And tell me why, and I'll hopefully comment below and let's start this discussion. Peace!